Daniel's 70th week prophecy, Part 2. Could 2014 be the beginning of the 70th week? How, when, and what? How will it happen? When will it happen? And what will occur during? Welcome to Chapter 2. Something else is up. In this chapter we'll discuss the Tetrad lunar eclipses of 2014 and 2015, the solar eclipses of 2014 and 2015, the divine design of the lunar and solar eclipses of 2014 and 2015, and the mystery of Hanukkah found in the lunar and solar eclipses. Something else is up. If the comet Ison were the only cosmic event leading up to the 2014-2015 period, I would think, probably like you, that it is a nice coincidence that a comet happens to whiz by on Hanukkah and Thanksgiving. And just a note, have you thought of the chances of a rock hurtling through space trillions of miles only to show up on Hanukkah? What are the odds? And then to have it be the particular Hanukkah that also falls on Thanksgiving, the only time in our history, or for another 77,000 years. That is weird. At the mbostrom2.wordpress.com blog, there are many interesting articles on important cosmic events on significant days in Jewish history. She points out that comets are seen as a bad omen of major war or natural disaster. Well, it just so happens that there are a series of lunar and solar eclipses that are specifically going to be falling on Jewish holidays and other significant Jewish days, beginning with the comet Ison in 2013, all the way through 2015. In the following slides, we will focus on what else is up. The Tetrad lunar eclipses. First, what are tetrad lunar eclipses? Well, they are 4 lunar eclipses that in this case happen on 2 specific Jewish holidays 2 years in a row. The 2 Jewish holidays are the first day of Passover in the spring and the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles in the fall. These lunar eclipses will occur in 2014 and 2015. On April 15th, 2014, and on October 9th, 2014, and on April 4th, 2015, and September 28th, 2015. Tetrad lunar eclipses are also known as the blood moons, and in 2014 they will come on the first day of Passover and the first day of Tabernacles, and in 2015 they will likewise come on the first day of Passover and the first day of Tabernacles. That's weird. No, it's mind-blowing. As can be expected, these tetrad lunar eclipses are pretty rare. I had never heard of them before. In fact, they've only occurred 7 times since the year 1 AD, and only 3 times in the last 520 years. Only 3 times, so it is rare. Here are the years that they occurred the last 3 times. In 1493 and 1494, in 1949 and 1950, and in 1967 and 1968. So did anything significant happen when these last 3 tetrad lunar eclipses occurred with the Jewish people? Well, let's see. With those that occurred in 1493 and 1494, a couple things happened in 1492. First, the Jewish population was driven out of Spain and the Great Dispersion resumed. Also, Christopher Columbus discovered a new world. And with those that occurred in 1949 and 1950, in June 1948 the Jewish nation was created. 1949 would have been the first Passover in the land. And with those in 1967 and in 1968, in June 1967, the Israelis fought the 6-Day War, and they regained control of the old city of Jerusalem and the Temple Mount for the first time in just under 1900 years. Can we possibly assume that if the last 3 times the tetrad lunar eclipses occurred, and something significant happened to the Jews or Israel, the 4th time in 520 years may indicate something big may happen with Israel? In my opinion, it is not too far-fetched. Here's an interesting website that highlights this pretty well. It is BibleDefended.com. Just a final note on the Tetrad lunar eclipses. As I've read various blogs and articles regarding the Tetrad lunar eclipses, I've noticed the tendency to try to have them indicate the culmination or end of divine events, invariably saying the rapture or the day of the Lord's wrath should soon follow. Please recognize that they always indicate the starting of something God is doing among His people. In 1492, the Spanish Inquisition and persecution of Jews began again. In 1948, the nation of Israel was formed and it began their time in the land. And in 1967, the Israeli forces just took back Jerusalem, and that began their time in the Holy City. These Tetrad eclipses will herald the beginning of something too, very possibly the 70th week of Daniel. What about the sun? I knew you were going to ask that question. Well, there are going to be interesting solar eclipses too that fall on Jewish holidays and other significant days in 2014 and 2015. The first one that occurs in 2014 is on April 29th, an annular solar eclipse that occurs the day after Holocaust Remembrance Day. The next one occurs on October 23rd, a partial solar eclipse over the USA. Do you remember my previous slide of the timing of the 70th week? That's weird. October 23rd, 2014 is my projected day 1 of the 70th week of Daniel, where possibly the signing of the 7-year peace treaty takes place just after the Feast of Tabernacles and the High Holy Days. This is interesting since this date came up independently as a result of my calculations from the midpoint of Passover in the 70th week in Part 1 of my study. I knew I had seen that date somewhere, and when I compared it with the dates of the eclipses, I nearly fell out of my chair. The first eclipse of 2015 occurs on March 20th. It is a total solar eclipse over Europe, North Africa, and Israel, the last day of Adar. Nisan 1 begins the spring religious calendar. The second eclipse occurs on September 13th, a partial solar eclipse. This is the 29th day of Elul, the last day of the Jewish year. And this is a very significant day. This particular 29th day of Elul is what is called the Shemitah day, where every 7th year is the sabbatical year, where the accounts are to be reset and debts canceled. And this is the day that America may suffer its third great calamity. 2 previous Shemitah days on Elul 29 were 9/17/2001 and 9/29/2008. On both of these days, the American stock market saw their largest declines in history. In 2001, it was due to the attack of 9/11. On 9/17/01 was the day the stock market reopened following the attack, and the stock market plummeted. In 2008, it was worse and was due to the financial collapse of Lehman Brothers and the mortgage-backed securities and insurance markets. See Rabbi Jonathan Cahn's book, The Harbinger, regarding the Isaiah 9:10 judgment on America. So here are our 4 solar eclipses in 2014 and 2015. In 2014, the first one occurs the day after Holocaust Remembrance Day, and the other occurs on our possible day 1 of the 70th week of Daniel. In 2015, the first one occurs the last day of Adar. If you recall, the first day of Nisan, the next day, begins the new religious year. And finally, we have the fourth one, which is the last day of Elul, or Elul 29. The next day is the first day of Tishri, which begins the new civil year. But also, this particular Elul 29 is the day of the Shemitah. One thing I'd like us to try is to see the combined cosmic events between 2013 and 2015, beginning with the comet Ison on November 28, 2013, and adding all of our lunar and solar eclipses to see what that may reveal. And here are the particular days that these events occur. There are a few things that I'd like us to note regarding these eclipses and their rarity. Notice that the 4 solar eclipses are bounded by the first and last lunar eclipse, and this makes a total of 8 eclipses on Jewish holidays or other significant Jewish days. And this series of lunar and solar eclipses will not occur for at least another 1,000 years according to NASA. And these Tetrad lunar eclipses on these particular Jewish holidays alone will not occur for another 500 years. And finally, the comet Ison will never appear on our combined Hanukkah Thanksgiving Day. It is truly the mystery lighting of the first candle of Hanukkah in 2013. So we've seen how uncommonly rare these events are. But are these chance? Or are they divine cosmic events? Here are all of the eclipses again in order, and let's see if there's a pattern that may emerge. Could there be a divine design in this series of cosmic events? There are 8 total eclipses in 2014 and 2015. E.W. Bullinger, in his book entitled Number in Scripture, points out that the number 8 is a number of divine completion. Quote, "It is 7 plus 1. Hence, it is the number especially associated with resurrection and regeneration and the beginning of a new era or order." Also, notice the interesting pattern of the eclipses. They aren't just a random pattern. The second set of 4 eclipses seems to mirror the first set. Dr. Bullinger has a term for this type of sequence. He calls it an epinodos, which, according to him, is a divine seal, if you will, where the first, A, corresponds to the 8th, A, and the second, B, to the 7th, B, the third, C, to the 6th, C, and finally the 4th, D, to the 5th, D. But I think there's more that we need to decipher from this divine pattern. Here are the 8 eclipses. Could there be another message in this series of cosmic events? We've seen that there are 8 total eclipses, and that speaks to completeness and a new order of things according to Dr. Bullinger. Also, these form an interesting pattern, which Dr. Bullinger calls an epinodos. This, he points out, attaches a divine seal upon it. However, there are actually 9 total cosmic events of significance. The first starts out with the lighting of the Hanukkah candle by the comet Ison, followed by 8 eclipses. Dr. Bullinger points out that in Scripture the number 9 is the number of divine judgment. To quote him, "It marks the completeness, the end and issue of all things as to man, the judgment of man, and all his works." Could it be that these 9 cosmic events, beginning in November 2013, are declaring a period soon to come of God's judgment, and not the time of peace as promised by the signing of the treaty in 2014? Well, I think I found one more divine seal on this series of cosmic events. We have indicated that the symbol of the Hanukkah menorah, with 9 candles, is portrayed in the possible last 8 years, from the appearance of the comet Ison in 2013 to the lighting of the first candle of the Millennial Temple in 2021. As I worked on this section in my presentation, I noticed another stamp of this Hanukkah menorah on these cosmic events, also starting with the comet Ison. On the next slide, you'll see an interesting pattern develop that I think adds to the divine design, that for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, shows us where we could be heading in a very short time. Hanukkah and the cosmic events. Could this be an added divine seal upon these eclipses, beginning with the comet Ison on November 28, 2013? Let's see. Well, the first eclipse occurs on the first day of Passover on April 15th, 2014. Let's see how the rest of these 8 eclipses lay out over the next 2 years. Well, you can easily see that all 8 eclipses fit very nicely on the Hanukkah menorah. So it really appears that the comet Ison serves as the servant candle or shamash that starts the lighting of the candles with the first eclipse on Passover 2014, and so on. One more thing pointing to 2014. So we've seen 9 particular cosmic events that seem to point to the 70th week of Daniel beginning in 2014. And I don't know if it's for sure that it will begin in 2014. I do think it is pretty interesting that all of these things are happening just before and at the beginning of the next possible time the 70th week can begin, according to the Hebrew calendar. But there is one last thing I will discuss with regards to the timing of 2014, and it begins a long time ago in a land far, far away. Thank you for watching Chapter 2. Please continue on to Chapter 3 for more of Part 2 of my study on Daniel's 70th week prophecy. In Chapter 3, we'll discuss the rabbinical prophecy of 1217 AD, and also a Part 2 review and the appendices.